they wanted me to actually change my name to Kryst, spelled the way it is on the album. I would have been Kryst the Conqueror.
Your home for melodic heavy metal. This is the Signals of Intuition.
There's brand new Jeff Scott Soto right there, the lead-off single from his brand new record, Complicated. That is Love is the Revolution. You're listening to the Signals of Intuition, your home from a lot of hard rock and heavy metal. And tonight on the show, we've got the singer of that track. Jeff will be talking to us tonight. Jeff, you might know as the singer of a number of bands, including Yngwie Malmsteen, Sons of Apollo, Soto. He's been with Siberian Orchestra for about the last 15 years, Journey, and so many other bands. And you can certainly go and look up his name and see what an exhaustive discography he has within the world of melodic rock. So let's get Jeff on the line right now. Hey, Jeff, how's it going? It's Brandon from the Signals of Intuition.
Very good, Brandon. How about yourself?
Doing well. You in the middle of interview hell today?
It's interview hell all week.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. It's funny. I remember it's so strange that everything's changed so much. And I bring this up. We talk about a lot of the changes in all these interviews. We talk about the changes in music, the way people get their music, and but we never usually talk about the promotion end of things. Everything is so immediate now. I'm used to the old days still, where you had to do an interview 2 or 3 months before an album is about to be released, so it comes out simultaneously with the release. Nowadays, you do an interview, it's out that same day, and I'm still not getting used to it. I did an interview the other day, and already there was some clickbait stuff on Blabbermouth, so it's kind of funny. I'm writing to the label going, hey, don't we have an album coming out in less than a month? I haven't done one interview for it. They said, trust me, they're all coming, and they're all coming in one big swarm because everything's so immediate now. It's truly done on the fly.
It's crazy, how you just, and I mean, I don't know if it was like that back in the day, but now it's just bang, 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 here's 20 interviews in a day or whatever.
It used to be that, but they used to be like months before the album's out. By the time the album comes out or the interview comes out, I've forgotten what I said. Nowadays, I'm like, geez, I just said that yesterday.
That's great. Yeah, well, I mean, everything was print back then too, right? So it was going for magazines
exactly.
And all that stuff.
Well, yeah, but even stuff that was straight to internet or blogs and stuff like that, it still was all done in accordance to the album coming out in a couple months. And now it's all done so immediately. And that's got probably the one, I actually just discussed this on the last interview. My one grievance that comes from all of that is the fact that I used to have this anticipation level, this kind of excitement of an album coming out, and the nervousness of, are people going to like it? What are the reviews going to be like? Nowadays, you have all that buildup for the course of writing and releasing an album. It takes you months to create it and mix it and get the album artwork and do the videos. And then the first week it's out, it's forgotten about within 7 days. It's like, it just came out. Next week, they're on to something new. And so that's the one thing I do miss is the anticipation was able to be dragged out a little further when singles were coming out after the album was released. Nowadays, all the singles come out before the release. You might get one more on the day of release, and that's it. They've already moved on to the next. So I just try to make the most of it for the time that I get to talk about it and to promote it and push it. And, you got to kind of roll with the punches.
For sure. So, all right. So I guess let's start with the new record, Complicated. Sure. I spoke to you last for Wide Awake in My Dreamland. And while these two records are certainly similar, I would say this is probably a little bit more harder rocking. The other one was probably a bit more melodic. Do you feel the same way the second time around working with Alessandro?
Yeah, you know what? The first album we did together was the majority of the album and the contents were, I gave Alessandro carte blanche in writing all the music and saying, basically, I want to hear your vision of where you hear me going next. And so with that, he basically replied, I want to take the best of what I love about your voice and your career, and I want to build the album around that. He did that for Wide Awake. That's why I think it had a lot more elements of past things throughout the course of my career that he loves. Not necessarily everything, but the things that he loves. For this album, the core ideal behind it was kind of the same, but Talisman was the one we picked on majority on, because Talisman not recording and existing anymore, that's probably the one important factor of my life and my career that's missing, I guess. I kind of do elements of it on my own. I kind of have elements of Talisman in Wet, but to actually hear songs that could be actual Talisman songs, I don't really have that in my life right now. So that's where Alessandro really wanted to focus on. And that's why the album's a little heavier. It's got a lot of Talisman influence and vibe on it. And I think he truly pulled it off with flying colors, because I don't know anybody else besides the guys in Talisman who could write Talisman-oriented material for that band, or for me, if we wanted to go that direction, than Alessandro.
Yeah, I mean, I'll certainly say, and that was another thing I was going to point out, is so many songs do sound like it could be on Talisman. I mean, you know, like the opening Last to Know, for example, I mean, just screams that band. I know there's a few ballads, like, what's number 5 called? Until I See You Again. I mean, that one, to me, I mean, I guess you'd say, you know, Talisman did some ballads, but I mean, again, I think that harkens a bit more back to Wide Awake, where you've got that melodic rock thing going. What are some favorites on the new record for you? Which ones really stand out for you?
So basically, you're asking me to choose which child out of the 11 children I have. Yeah, honestly, it's the old cliche. It's really difficult to choose your favorite child, and that's how I view my own songs. I view them as my children, as an extension of myself. So of course, every song has a different reflection or emotion. So it truly comes down to what's my favorite of the day, or my favorite because it's that particular style. There's no actual favorite overall. Even the singles themselves don't necessarily reflect my favorite songs on the records, because I choose the singles with the label. We decide and we agree on which songs are going to be released together. It's not necessarily which ones are the strongest, in my opinion. And I kind of need that anyways. I need somebody to bounce that off anyways, because if you ask me, I'm going to probably choose something that maybe isn't something they feel is the strongest. So I do that collaboration with the label, of course. But overall, pretty much everything you hear as a single is certainly the ones that were the tops in my list, including the song, or especially the song Love is the Revolution. They didn't choose that song as a single. And I not only chose that as a single, I chose it as a lead-off single. The first time I heard that sitar opening that song, I knew I had something different and special that had to be focused on and actually released. When we finished that song, it was one of those proud moments, like, wow, I've never had a song that had that kind of vibe to it. And I love that kind of stuff, that there's still somewhere else to go after so many years and decades of recording and releasing music. There's still somewhere else to go with it.
It's funny you mentioned that song, because until I saw the promo, that when I finally found out it was Alessandro again, and great choice. You know, he's amazing at what he does, and he's assembled some great music. I honestly thought that song was done with Jason Bieler, because it has such a Saigon Kick vibe, at least with the sitar.
Right.
That was the feeling I got from that song, but I will agree that's definitely one of my favorites, and you're right, it's completely different than almost anything else on the record.
I appreciate that. Yeah, you know, Alessandro is so accomplished in so many ways, and it really bothers me that he gets so much heat from, especially recently, from a lot of the fan base. You know, that he could be a part of something that's coming out now, and they'll shoot it down before they even listen to it. Oh, not him again. Oh, I'm so sick of him. Oh, he's on everything. You don't need, it's so unnecessary to judge a book by its cover, just because he's done a lot of things for so many people. And maybe they have, in some ears, it sounded like it's starting to repeat itself, or it sounds all the same. What I love about working with Alessandro, he absolutely positively digs into me personally and the stuff that would work for me. When we're done with something, I don't hear it back as something that could have worked for Revolution Saints or one of the many other things that he's working for and writing for. I hear it, that's made and meant for me.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that, and I agree with you. I don't get the hate. I mean, he's an absolutely lovely guy. You know, he does write so many different styles. He's got his Frontiers melodic rock sound down, but I mean, he did Chalice of Sin with Wade Black, and that, to me, that's like, you know, quite heavy music compared to an album like this. So again, he has a lot of different flavors, and I think, I mean, even look at your career. You've got, you know, albums that are blues, albums that are, you know, as heavy as it gets with Soto. I mean, I think there's something to be said for someone who has that diversity as well.
This is what I enjoy the most about working with him. I know I'm in good hands based on and I'm not patting myself in the back. I'm definitely patting his back, but on my own terms, I have a lot of different genres and influences. and I want those to come forth. I don't want to bottle those up. They have to come forth. Otherwise, I feel like I'm cheating myself. I'm not challenging myself. I'm not giving the best that I have to give. And Alessandro is exactly the same way. And that's what I love about working with him. And I entrust everything into his hands because of that reason, because it's literally like me holding the reins and taking control of the situation and make sure it's going to be the best it can possibly be. He does the same thing, and I let him take the ball and run with it.
Yeah. Now, tell me about, you did a new record, I think it's probably about a year old now, Duets. I wanted to ask you some stuff about that because it was such an interesting album to go and re-sing your whole discography with different singers.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, one of my favorites on that is something that I've wanted to hear you do for a long time, is sing with Johnny Gioeli, doing an Axel song. Nice. Now, have you two done anything? I know you guys sang together on the 25th anniversary show. Have you guys done anything else together, or was that really like the first properly recorded track?
That's the first proper thing. We were supposed to do a show together in Bulgaria last year, but unfortunately, he still felt he wasn't ready to deal with the openness. Everybody was so free and open at that point when the festival was going. So he unfortunately pulled out, and then the country locked down like 2 weeks after that. So he made the right choice. I didn't get COVID from that. I got COVID later, but I still went ahead and did it with Ronnie Romero. Yeah, I love Johnny. He's been a friend for decades now. It's such an amazing singer, but more importantly, he's such an amazing person. And when I did the duets thing, clearly the idea started from Frontiers and I were trying to come up with content, things that we can continue doing and releasing, as we didn't know how to navigate how long the pandemic was going to keep us from going on the road. But I also wanted to make sure I didn't cloud or convolute the market with too much JSS, because that's an easy thing to do as well. I didn't want to put too many releases between the official ones that people are going to go, oh God, another album, another release. And oh, I'm so sick of this guy. So we wanted to come up with an idea of how to do that without putting too much traffic out there. The first idea that Frontiers came to me with was maybe doing a covers album. And if anybody's followed my career, my lifestyle, I've done enough covers to throw a stick at. I don't need a whole album of covers, especially trying to come up with the right ones. What's the theme? What's the concept? No, thanks. Not interested in that. So then they say, well, what about a covers album of all your stuff? Like a legacy JSS re-record. And again, I'm like, it sounds like it'll be fun to revisit those songs and redo them again. But honestly, I'm not really interested in rehashing somebody's memory or kind of trying to help erase somebody's memory of the original versions of those songs and what it means to them. There's a lot of people that when they do that, they get more negativity than they get praise for trying to redo something that was already done that is so etched in people's brains and memories. So I said, that idea I'm better with, but what if I do every song with another singer, kind of the Lady Gaga, Tony Bennett idea?
Yeah. That's
when the idea of the Duets thing was born, because now it made sense that I could be me. I could basically relive my old memories, but now reimagine them with somebody else singing alongside me. Then I got really excited. Then I made my wish list of friends and singers that I wanted to work with that would be great on this album, but more so great on the particular songs. And every single song was imagined and cast for that individual. Specifically, I had to do Coming Home with Dean because that song was the only song we did on the Soul Circus record that kind of had that journey flavor and injected into it. I know I'm not going to get Steve Perry to do it with me. So the next best thing is I asked Dean to do it with me, and Dean was part of Soul Circus. There's every single person that's on there. There's kind of an underlying reason why they're on those particular songs. As you nailed it with Johnny Gioeli. He's still part of Axel's arsenal. I was part of. Put us together, singing a song that I co-wrote with Axel, released that was a fan favorite. Put him on it because he sings it every tour that he does with Axel. And now you have the blend of us, the both of us doing it. Those kind of little things were my reasons for casting certain individuals. But the biggest one was I wanted the majority of them to be under the Frontiers umbrella, because every single singer, I think, except for one, they're part of Frontiers, the Frontiers family. It helps Frontiers market them. It helps them market themselves. It helps me market them. They're marketing me. Everybody wins in this situation.
Yeah, it was really great. I will say one of my favorite songs, I haven't heard it in a while now, but One of my favorites was Holding On that you got to sing with BJ from Spectra.
Uh-huh.
Tell me about getting to do that song and working with him. I know you've worked with him now for quite some time, correct? With your other solo things.
Absolutely. BJ's been part of my life along with my drummer Edu. They're both from Brazil. They've been part of my live arsenal since I'm going to say back in 2012 was when I revamped and retooled everything. But before that, I've been working with these guys for many years. They had a band called Tempest that they were my backup band for a lot of the JSS things. I would always bring them as my opening band, support band for a lot of tours and things I did in Brazil and otherwise. So I've been championing these guys for years and years. I've been trying to get the world to hear BJ as a singer because the majority of the people that know of him only know of him as being part of my arsenal. I wanted to finally get that guy. I wanted the world to finally hear him and what he has to offer. And that's what we got out of Spectra. So on the same note, when I was doing that song Holding On, I needed a voice that could bring forth that same kind of AOR vibe that I did on the original version. That song is very important to Frontiers. Serafino and Mario, the ones who run the label, that song is not only just a favorite of theirs from my catalog, that's one of their favorite songs of all time. That goes right along with their favorite Journey songs in Boston and all the other melodic rock that they love. And that to me is one of the biggest honors to be anybody's favorite for anything, much less my actual label. So that song had to be done with the right singer, had to be done with the right treatment. If I'm going to redo it, it has to be as strong, if not better than the original. And I think we really knocked it out of the park with BJ.
Yeah. He's a guitar player, is it?
He plays guitar and he's in Soto and my solo endeavors, but in Spectra and in all the other walks of life that he does, he's just a singer.
Yeah. And what a voice he is too. Like,
absolutely
talented. Speaking of Spectra, I'm going to be catching you in Atlanta in a couple months at Prog Power. Now, they're going to be backing you up for a tribute to Queen as well, eh?
Uh-huh.
Tell me about what brought on the idea to do a set of that, to do an entire show dedicated to Queen.
Well, not again. I say again because I've said it already quite a few times in interviews when people asking me about touring and stuff like that. At this point in my life, I'm going to be saying yes to and only accepting things that are of a certain level and a certain quality. I've done so many tours and so many, the cycle of album tour. I've done that for so many years. And sometimes you're forcing a tour just because you have an album. It's mandatory. You're expected to do a tour. I don't want to do a tour because it's expected. I want to do a tour because it makes sense. And I don't want to go out there and bust my hump for 6 weeks at a time, basically be playing in front of 80 people a night and coming home with just enough money to pay for half of my mortgage. Yeah. I want to go out there where it makes sense, where if I'm going to be gone, I'm going to be gone for a quality amount of time. I need a quality amount of reward from it in terms of whether it be financial or even my own personal being, my own self, of feeling like, well, that wasn't too uncomfortable. It was prosperous in terms of playing in front of a lot of people, blah, 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 all the way across the board. I want it to be prosperous and to be justified, I guess. So when I'm doing the Prog Power thing, that was their idea. They love the Queen DVD that I did at the Queen convention back in 2003 so much. Prog Power is all about having certain special things and events from an artist that's just a little bit beyond their normal releases, their normal tours. And that's why they asked me if I'd be willing to put it together and do my version of it for them. And I said yes, because I love Queen that much that I'm willing to go out there instead of insisting, no, if it's not my music, I'm not going to do it. This is something that sounds like a lot of fun that I really like to do. And I have done the JSS set at Prog Power. I've done Sons of Apollo there. I don't mind going back and doing something a little different than what they've already seen from me. For sure. Yeah, I thought what a fantastic idea. I knew you had some connection to Queen, so I'm glad you clarified that. Yeah, I was part of the Queen Extravaganza, which was the official, it still is, the official Queen tribute band run by the band. So yeah, I have a definitely an affinity towards that band. I have a strong friendship and bond with them. But more importantly, I have a massive influence and they're part of my DNA so much that without that band, I literally wouldn't be sitting here talking to you. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that and seeing what tunes you bring out and all the rest of it. That should be a lot of fun because, like you say, it is completely different. I saw you with Sons of I've seen with
many times with Sons of Apollo. I saw you just before COVID hit in Battle Creek there a couple of years ago.
Right.
Now, switching gears slightly, one band that I always want to ask you about, I've known about for many, many years, I'm sure you're probably tired of answering questions about, but Kryst the Conqueror, how did this band happen?
That was from the Ashes of the Misfits, who I knew nothing about. I didn't know their names. I didn't know their music. I basically got a random call from a friend who was in the business of, I guess, of putting artists and making relationships with other artists together. If somebody was looking for a singer, somebody's looking for a collaboration, this person was the go-to person because they knew everyone in the business. So I got a call saying the former members of the band The Misfits are doing something new. They want to do something positive. The Misfits was more of a punk, dark kind of, I don't want to say evil, but they were just a darker version of what they were doing musically. They want to do the opposite of that. They want to do more of an enlightening with a message, kind of a secular version of a Christian message. Again, I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll listen to what they got going. They sent me, I spoke to, I think it was Jerry Only I spoke to. He's known from different names. I don't know how to refer to him. I call him Mo. Mo reached out to me, and he basically, he didn't sell it as something that we're going to do together, that he wanted to do together that's going to continue. He sold it as a session. He goes, I want to do this. Your voice would be perfect for it. And I said yes to it. They flew me out. I spent a few weeks with the guys, and it was amazing. It was a lot of fun hanging with them, working with them, and we recorded an entire album worth of material. Again, not knowing that they were hoping or planning that I would in turn say, okay, the album's done now, let's release it and let's go on tour. I'm like, I got a lot of other things going on. Musically, this is not really my cup of tea. I wish you guys the best, but I'm sorry, I did the record. I can't do any more than that. So it kind of fell into the lap of a cult classic, a cult following, and that's where it remains. We never got to move forward in building a band out of it. They wanted me to actually change my name to Kryst, spelled the way it is on the album. I would have been Kryst the Conqueror. And at that point,
I never heard that part. They wanted you to actually change, because you were playing like the character.
Exactly. It's kind of like Marilyn Manson. That was the name of the band. Alice Cooper was the name of the band. It became the name of the singer, but just by default, especially with the changes of lineups. By default, it became the name of the band, or became the name of the artist, rather. It started as the name of a band, and this would have been the name of the band, Kryst the Conqueror. Somewhere along the way, I would be Kryst the Conqueror from that point onward. And that's not really what I'm aiming for. But I love those guys. I love Doyle. I saw Doyle a few years ago after not seeing for a few decades, and they're just great people. They're really genuine, good people. And I wouldn't change that situation of recording and working with them for the world.
It's funny. I came to learn too that Snake from Skid Row was a part of that. Did you see him at the sessions?
I did not.
At all?
It's the first I've heard of that. I knew nothing about that. So if he was, it would make sense, because those guys are the New Jersey guys, and everybody knows everybody in those circles. I grew up in the LA scene. I was born in New York, but I grew up in the LA scene. So I wasn't so well connected with the whole East Coast thing.
Oh, okay. Now, jumping ahead a few years, I had no idea that you sang on this until recently, but I saw that you had sung the theme song from the Biker Mice from Mars, and I used to love that show as a kid. Now, from what I know, they didn't use your version of the song. Is that true?
I think it was supposed to be. I think it was supposed to be a Biker Mice movie. I'm not too sure about the details behind it, but originally the whole album was supposed to be done by other artists. There was, I think, Billy Idol was on supposed to be on one of them. Vince Neil was supposed to be on one. Alice Cooper. There were some good names and some big names on it. So when I went to do my 2 or 3 songs later that day, one of them canceled. Hey, Jeff, would you mind singing one more? I'm not going to be able to get so and so on this one. Yeah, no problem. So the next day, there's I just got another cancellation. Are you able to come back and do a couple more songs? It ended up, I ended up doing the whole record, which I was really happy about, because at the time my son was very young and he was the biggest Ninja Turtles fan. And so now finally, after all these albums and all these things that I've done that, most kids could care less about. Oh yeah, Dad's a singer. I don't listen to his music. I don't really care about it. All of a sudden I did something that my son loved and that he cared about. My dad's on the Biker Mice from Mars. They would sing toys and jackets with the logo on it. Like, finally, I'm a hero to my kid.
That's great. That's so funny.
Yeah, it was awesome.
A couple of years after that, so I know you did backing vocals on the band Monster and their album Through the Eyes of the World. Were you also briefly a part of that band? No?
I think that was another situation where I did it. I remember I did it with Mick Zane and Mark Bain. You know, God rest. We've lost one of them since then, and God bless them for it. But these guys again were the nicest guys I've ever worked with, I've ever dealt with. And I was just talking to Pete Holmes, who was the drummer of that, because those guys were from the band Malice, and Pete I knew from Black and Blue. But Pete was part of that as the drummer, and they wanted it to be a real band. They wanted it to be a real situation. But when I did those sessions, they eventually found another singer to continue and actually release it. I think the original version of that band was called Rattle Shack. That was the original name of the band and the project. And then they eventually got another singer and redid my vocals, but they kept my work on the songs. They kept my vocals, my melodies and my lyrics. So yeah, it was one of those things, like many, I do them as a session and don't think two things about it until later when they realize they have something there that they like to pursue and continue. But unfortunately, because of other things I'm already committed to, I can't really follow up through with them as a new project, something that's going to be part of my personal career.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I just spoke to Pete Agnew from Nazareth, and I mean, the one story he kept coming back to is he said, you have no idea how many songs we went in, did the session, and a week or two later, you go, what the hell song was that?
Exactly.
You know, and I'm sure you probably have that a fair amount in your career. I mean, just people going, oh yeah, you're on this. And you're like, what was that again? What's that all about?
That just happened. The last interview that happened. Exactly that happened. The interview started with praise of something that I did as a session a year or two ago that finally just got released. And this person's talking about this song and the people behind it. I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. and I don't mean that disrespectfully. I do so much work, so much session work that I can't remember heads or tails of what they are unless I actually had something to do with the songwriting or it was my idea. I was part of the inception. I forget about some of these things. I forget about some of my own songs. It's like there was one song that they were talking about on this new album saying, can you tell me about this song? I'm like, I would love to, but I don't remember what the theme was about on this particular one because I've done like 4 albums worth of material since this album was done and was finished. So it's embarrassing sometimes that I don't remember my own works, but it just goes to show how much work I'm actually doing that it's kind of hard to keep track of everything.
Yeah, it was funny. So I know you did it. I think it's probably been over a year now, the new Wet album. Tell me about how that whole band came together. Was that just Serafino putting you guys together, or is there more to the story than that as far as that band?
That was kind of the antithesis to what Frontiers has been doing a lot with lately. That was the first, I don't want to say super group. Anytime I hear or see the word or say the word super group, I think of individuals wearing leotards and capes. We were a super group. Sons of Apollo don't wear capes. We're not a super group. But that was the inception of the super group for Frontiers. Basically the taking 2 or 3 different heads of different bands and putting them together to see what they could create together. And I had nothing to do with the creation of the first album. That was all Robert Sell and Eric Martinson. They wrote all the stuff. They demoed everything. They just sent it to me. I put my voice on it and walked away from it. And that was one of the situations where what I'm talking about as far as sessions. I remember when they sent me the songs, they were sitting in my computer for a couple months. And then we hadn't started working on the record. I remember just going kind of spring cleaning, getting rid of files and things on my computer. And I came across these files there wasn't any mention or there wasn't any text behind it. Like, what is this? A bunch of MP3s. I'm listening to them going, what songs are these? What is this? Why do I have this? I don't even know what this is. It was because there was Eric singing on them. Yeah. And even at that point, I didn't know Eric's voice. I didn't know anything about Eclipse. Everything was just so new and foreign to me. I threw the music away. I'm like, I don't know what this is or why I'm keeping it, but I'm not going to be listening to this. It has nothing to do with me. So I threw it away. Then we start working on the album and Eric reaches out. He goes, okay, so you have everything already. Here's all the lyrics and we can start. I'm like, What do you mean I have everything? I never got anything. Oh yeah, you downloaded. I even got the notification that said that you received it and you downloaded it. I have no idea what you're talking about, bro. So he sent me everything, and then as soon as I downloaded, I listened to the first two songs. Like, that's what that was. So strange. But yeah, it was one of those situations where Serafino had a kind of a wish list idea of what would it sound like to put Eric, Jeff, and Robert in the same situation together. And the reason why we even called it Wet, because it is a culmination of the three bands of Work of Art, Eclipse, and Talisman. We just took the initials of those three bands because to me, it sounds like a combination of those three bands. Doesn't sound like one or the other in any strength or any form. It just sounded like a true collaboration of those three bands. And it's a great thing that I'm still part of. And we do them when and if we can. And I'm sure that I'm going to be getting that call soon that it's time to do another one.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, the last one was, well, I mean, all of them have been fantastic, but the last one I listened to a lot.
Thank you so much. Yeah, they've grown so much. Eric Martinson's grown so much as a writer, producer. All the things I love about working with Alessandro are the same things I love with working with Eric and Robert. They're just so talented, and I love being surrounded by people that work that way and that work that well together. But the thing is, they also work fast. They work fast with quality and not just quantity.
Yeah, that's very true. Now, I know, was it last year? No, I think it was last year that you were out with Jason Bieler.
Yeah.
And I know you've done a lot of work.
I was out with him last week, too.
Oh, you're still doing stuff with him now. Okay.
We're still doing these things. It's something that fell into our laps that wasn't meant to be a regular thing. We just thought, let's go have some fun and do our own little kind of dog and pony show of comedy meets music. At this point, there's more comedy than there is music. It's kind of funny. We're kind of using the songs as buffers between the comedy.
Yeah, I wanted to, it must have been last year. I remember sort of looking up dates and going, ooh, I wonder, of course, the border wasn't open, which doesn't help me. I'm in Canada, so that doesn't help. But I was looking for something somewhere near Detroit.
Right. Chicago is the closest that we're getting to Detroit.
Oh, okay. Now, are you guys still going to be playing? Because I know Jason's doing his thing, you're doing your thing at Prague Power. Are you and Jason still going to be doing it's like an acoustic set or something?
Yeah, I'm doing the Queen set. He's doing the Baron von Bielski set, both on the same night on Friday, and the next day on Saturday we're doing our acoustic thing at the they call it the Prague Power brunch, and that's sold out. It's going to be great. It's going to be amazing because what we're doing is it's kind of giving me a new life, a new kind of lease on life in going out there and playing, because it's such a fun thing to do, especially with Jason. Everything about it is more about fun and relaxed and chill than the typical stresses of going on tour and worrying about bus calls and all that stuff. It's so chill and so relaxed, but yet it's so much fun and it's prosperous as well. So we're absolutely planning on doing more and building upon this and making sure this becomes a regular thing for us.
That's fantastic. Now, do you guys have any talks to do like a proper album together? I know you've sung, I think you did at least one song on Von Bielski and that sort of thing. Like, are you guys eventually going to be planning a band or some kind of release around this?
I think it's inevitable, especially if we continue growing this the way it has been growing. At the moment, we're just doing things from each other's legacy and some funny covers along the way. But for the most part, I think it would be the natural progression of it if we actually made an album together. I don't know that it'd have to be an album acoustically, because for the most part, acoustic shows and albums are kind of boring. And that's why this has such a special, this particular thing we're doing is more special because it's got a little more than just the actual music itself. We can keep an audience captured for a 2-hour performance at an acoustic show, and that's very hard to do.
It's damn near impossible. The only time I think I've seen that done well was seeing oh my god, what's the guy's name? Bald dude, Canadian guy. Oh my god.
Oh, Devin Townsend.
Thank you, Townsend. Yes. Yeah, I saw him a few years ago, and that was I don't know a lot of his music, so I knew maybe 2 songs he played, but my god, was that ever fun. So it sounds like what you're describing is something along those lines.
It's along those lines in terms of the delivery, not necessarily the music, and that would be the hard part because the show is so derived around comedy and wit and being clever with our words. I wouldn't want to have to match that with actual music that's funny and silly, because obviously on the music end, especially what we're doing, they're actually real songs. They were serious songs, we're just doing stripped down versions of them. But because there's so much comedy in between, I would hate for us to have to start writing comedy songs to match the ideal of what we're doing when we do it live.
Yeah. Now, speaking of touring too, what do you have coming up as far as like, is Sons of Apollo still going out, or are you guys kind of done that, the tour with MMXX?
No, we actually, that's the tour that we all got sent home from. So we didn't get to tour that album. It's probably one of the reasons why we haven't done or discussed any new material, because that album for us was so important and so strong that I don't want it to be buried. I want to go back out there and do our makeup dates and makeup tours based on that record before we start diving into new material. And kind of the majority of the album was being done live. And if we put a new record out, we wouldn't be able to do a lot of those songs because we'd have to fit in the new ones. So I think the ideal behind that is let's ride that one out and do the dates that we originally planned and get through those before we start thinking or talking about something else.
Yeah, that's fair enough. And then still every Christmas, you're still doing TSO. Do you have other projects and tours and things on the go right now?
I do have a new project with David Ellefson, without saying too much because I don't want to ruin the press release. We did an album of material together during the pandemic, again, with no real course or pretense behind it. We were collaborating. Everything we were doing sounded great. It was a lot of fun to do. We completed a full album that's now going to be released sometime this year, the second part of this year. And from that, we're discussing shows and tours and other possibilities to back that up. But the rest of it is pretty much makeup shows, makeup dates that were locked down or that were gone because of the pandemic. And I have quite a bit of those. And some are even that we were supposed to do this year that are now pushed to next year. So the majority of my live outings at the moment are going to be making up a lot of stuff. I'm not necessarily going out to do any real tours outside of, I don't really call them tours when I do Weekend Warrior stuff with Jason Bieler for 2 months. It's not really a tour because we're coming home in between. But that's about it at the moment. I'm not planning anything touring wise for the JSS albums. You know, I want to go out there and do the quality of shows, and I want to go out there and do shows that are in demand more so than shows that because I released an album.
Yeah, and that's fair enough. And I mean, at this point too, I'm sure you could probably do without going on the road for 6 straight weeks at a time. Like you say, weekend, you're gone for a few days, you're back home and you're still living life.
Right. And the important thing too is when you're on the road, you are missing a lot of things that you can't do on the road. When I have my downtime here at home, I'm actually still doing records and still doing collaborations, etc. So I get that luxury and freedom of continuing both sides of the coin without one of them consuming the majority of my life, you know, in the course of a few months.
Yeah. Yeah. You're not just living a hotel life for 6 months.
Exactly.
I mean, even on a tour bus, it is not the same as being at home. Not even close.
Exactly. And thankfully, because I've been part of the TSO brand and the band for 15 years now and counting, everything that they do is certainly of a higher level and caliber. So when you're touring and sleeping in a bus and living out of a suitcase, it's done with the absolute convenience and comfort that you would hope and want out of every situation you're part of. But unfortunately, not everything is TSO.
Yeah. Yeah, there are a few bands that honestly come anything close to that really by now.
Right. Exactly.
So so you said the Ellison album, you've got Complicated coming out. Is there anything else you can talk about on the horizon in the pipeline?
At the moment, no. There's always stuff coming out and stuff I'm working on and doing, but there are only so many things I can talk about. So, and as well, instead of clouding an interview with too many things to remember that I'm doing, it's kind of nice to give it to you in bits and pieces anyway.
No, that's true. That's fair enough. Well, Jeff, I want to thank you so much for taking the time and going a bit above and, you know, pushing the length a little bit to get through this. So I thank you very much for that. And congrats on the killer new record, Complicated, as well.
You're very welcome, Brandon. You know, and I have to thank you and people like you for having that interest and giving me that platform to talk about my music and even just to give me a little validation that what I'm doing is still something that people want and people will still back and listen to. So that part is very important to me just the same. It's not just about me making music. It's about people connecting to it at the same time. So thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. So yeah, other than that, you know, best of luck with the new record. And I'm looking forward to the show in about a month's time at Prog Power.
Right on, man. You be good. You be safe. And again, thanks for talking with me today.
All right. Thanks so much. Much appreciated. I'll catch you soon.
All right. Bye-bye.